evening. Good evening. I would like to call this meeting of the Neighborhood Improvement Services Advisory Committee to order. I would also like to thank our viewing audience for tuning in. And I know this is going to be a surprise, but I would like to ask Mrs. Marsha Wright if she would lead us in the invocation.
Bow our heads. Lord, thank you for this day, for all the days that have come before and all the days that are yet to come. We thank you for being able to convene this committee to work on issues, policies, and procedures to improve the neighborhoods in Jacksonville and Onslow County. We ask that everything that we do and say this evening will be pleasing in your sight, and that you will guide and direct us in all the decisions that we make. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Wright.
It's glorious here.
We'll continue with introductions of members, staff, and others. Starting with Ms. Gloria.
Gloria Whitney, member.
Brenda Thompson, member.
LaShawn Harston, Neighborhood Improvement Services Coordinator.
Ron Massey, worked for the city of Jacksonville.
Pamela Trafton, Senior Neighborhood Improvement Service Coordinator.
Dr. Sandra Bragg, member.
Jerry March, member.
Marsha Wright, member.
And I'm Paula Jones, chairperson. Let's go to the adoption of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the agenda as written.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion's carried. Was that correct? Y'all know I get a little nervous, so forgive me. Let's go to the approval of the minutes. So moving on down the line. These minutes have been provided for you from August 26, 2024. Hopefully you've had time to review them.
I make a motion to accept them as written.
I second.
If there are any changes or additions. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion is carried. Thank y'all, making it so easy. All right, let's start with number 6, UNC DFI update. Mr. Massey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. For those of you who may or may not know who DFI is an agency that works out of the University of North Carolina. It's a development finance initiative. It's a group that helps communities with economic development initiatives. Like, for example, they worked with Wilmington. Those of you familiar with Wilmington, there used to be an old parking garage right across the street from the hotel that was down on the river. Well, DFI worked with them to come up with that concept of basically tearing it down, redeveloping it, where they added new parking deck, but they also put shops on the first floor and housing on the second floor, and that's just one example. And one of the reasons we basically brought them on board is because they've worked, with a lot of communities on affordable housing initiatives. And so part of what we wanted to do is we wanted to learn a little bit more about, what options there are with affordable housing. And we also wanted to sort of get everybody the same understanding when we talk about affordable housing, because as soon as you mention the word, everybody thinks about something different. You know, people think about low-income housing and you know, so immediately, you know, you're talking past each other because you're not focused on the same topic in that. So it's part of an educational session for council and the staff, but also a way for council to determine what way is the best way for the city to be involved in affordable housing. I mean, because the city is just one of a number of partners in that. So anyhow, we brought them on board, and they've had 2 updates with council as they've gone through their process of analyzing our housing market. And it's been very enlightening to me, and some of us may have known this, some of us may have felt that, but not understood why it's the way it is. But we pulled together some of the slides from their presentation, and I'm just going to share a bit of that information because I think it really helps describe what's going on in Jacksonville. And one of the first things that they looked at what kind of housing is available for rent and for sale. Now you see that dotted line there says a normal market. You know, you normally have about 7%, you know, available, you know, for rental or sale. Well, these are the statistics from our market. You know, it says we got some tight housing situation there. And of course, it was exacerbated with Florence, you know, because it took units offline. And there's some other things that have happened that we'll see here shortly that also impact on it. But that's an eye-opening statistic. You say, okay, if average markets have higher availability rates, then that explains a little bit about the tightness of our market. And it also, of course, the less units there are and the more demand, that affects how much the prices are. And here's another aspect of that. You know, the number of units, even though there may be structures out there, there's units that are not occupied. So, you know, that also further, you know, increases pressure. And you can see the picture they chose to put on there. And those were, of course, the properties, you know, in town center. So there were, once, you know, we got to the point where one time there were 694 rental units there. Now they're basically 28. And that because, one, we forced the owners to stop renting some of those units, you know, and eventually the majority of them. And not because we didn't need the housing, is because the condition of the housing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that aspect of affordable housing. One thing that, you know, that affects our housing market is basically the base and the housing, the quarters allowance that military personnel get. And you can see on the top line there that's the quarters allowance that they got, that they were authorized to receive and those different years. And that was for a Marine sergeant that was married. So, and then you look at what's happened to the rental rate. So what's happening is it looks like the market is chasing that, you know, housing allowance. All right. So, I mean, and that's, to me, that's understandable. I mean, but that's what's going on. And so the real question that becomes is that affects, you know, the whole economics of people that are renting, you know, property. Matter of fact, the people that bought Town Center, that was one of the things they made reference to when they first talked to us about what they were doing in their renovation plans, is they were looking at that quarters allowance. And that was kind of what they had in mind as there's their selling price, so to speak, or their rental price. Yeah. whether it was worth it or not, that's part of the issue with some of our housing. Here's another thing that DFI showed us is, for example, growth in our labor force. But what's important is look at where that growth is. You see, the second largest increase in growth is accommodation and food service. And those are some very low-paid workers. Yeah. And some of your health care and social assistance, probably the same in that. But again, this starts to define, okay, who's here in Jacksonville looking for housing? So again, now here is where you get into, affordable housing. What is affordable, right? To start off with, that you look at what the median and the annual median income is for our area. And you see for Jacksonville, it's $76,200. And then you see the lines that basically are people earning that percent of the annual median income.
Now, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is this projected, or is this a module, or an add up in a level line base information, or is just this a flat
This is our
projected?
market. This is Jacksonville.
Oh.
This is information that more than likely they get out of the census and the American survey. What's it?
The American Census Survey.
That's updated. They do some spot, surveys in between the census to basically update the statistics. But that's where they get a lot of that information. But you look at somebody that's earning, 30% of the median income. If they're a single person, that could be, their available, the money that they've got available for, that's their salary, really.
And it's also looking at, so you take the American Census Survey and you look at HUD. So every year when HUD updates their low moderate income guidelines for income, that's where the numbers are based off as well.
So, but anyhow, this establishes the salary ranges for people that are in that different level of income. Extremely low, very low, low, and low to moderate. Okay? But what's really eye-opening is you look at the salaries and some of the workers in Jacksonville and where they fit. Like we talked about, the service industry, your food service people, they might be earning something like $22,000, $23,000 a year. And if you use that factor of you should only spend 30% of your income for rent, for housing, that's what they need to buy an apartment or to rent an apartment for. Well, you saw what the average apartment rental in Jacksonville is. And then accordingly, the person that makes 50%, you've got some school teachers that work for Onslow County that fall into that category. So again, affordable housing depends on who you're talking about. Everybody has got, a lot of people have got an issue with housing that's affordable. In other words, housing that's within that 30% factor of their salary. Now look at this. 43% of Jacksonville's households fall in those low to moderate income range. That's 8,700 households. And there's the number in each of those categories. I mean, that's our market. That's Jacksonville. That's not absolutely 100% precise, but it is specifically, representative of what we're experiencing here in Jacksonville. See, another aspect of affordable housing, they talk about, not only are you trying to make sure that you're not paying more than 30%, that's what you're trying to accomplish, but it's also a question of, the quality and whether or not you have enough space in your house, depending on your family. Like, for example, you might be able to rent a smaller apartment, and get that close to your 30%. But if you've got 4 children, you really don't have adequate space. So when you start talking about, housing, your housing costs being within that 30% of your AMI, and you talk, or your income, and you talk, then you also need to be concerned about both the quality of that housing and those units that we forced the property owner in Town Center to take offline were houses that weren't suitable to live in because they had some serious problems structurally or health-wise and things like that. And that's what, that's kind of what city definitely can do, but when we take that action, it has a terrible effect by taking those units off the market. But that's the only choice we have. You either let them go and let people live in conditions like that, or you basically force them to do something. And taking away their residence, forces them to do something. Now, you're not seeing anything done. They're busy suing the city, that particular company is right now, because they don't want to do all the things they need to do. They don't think the city has the authority to make them do that. See, this is an example of somebody that's basically, renting, someone that's a family of 4, $2,300 income, but if they're paying the average rent in Jacksonville, they only have $660 left a month for all the rest of their expenses. So that's why that 30% factor for housing is so important. Because when you start exceeding that, you start consuming the money you need for other purposes. Now here, there's this number, 6,500, about 75% of the group have housing needs. And this shows, for example, people that are owners versus renters. But again, that's our market. And then the next thing here is to look at what's happened. We've already talked about this, about how the prices of rental have gone up. And you see that especially since 2018 when we had Florence. You see what's happened with the rent. This is a reflection of fewer houses on the market, some of those rental properties not being repaired, after Florence, and so that just makes the market even tighter. And then this is what's happened, on the home ownership side. And this is what is actually probably worse, because when you look at between the increase in interest rates between 21 and 24, and what you look at the prices of homes, because with COVID and that, everything went up, building materials and all that. So you look at what kind of monthly payment that people have. That's made home ownership out of, taking it out of reach for a lot of people. But unfortunately, it's not a lot of good news, and now the challenge is going to be what actions do we take after this. But here's what they concluded as a result of doing this analysis. See, there's the homes out in the county, but then problem there is you're further away from things. And so, generally speaking, people don't have that same mobility, when they're out in the county and have more expenses associated with getting to facilities and services and things like that. See, that's what's happened right in our market. And of course, that highlights the fact that the things that the city's been doing to basically tear down houses that are slum and blight and then build another house on it, that's a good thing, but we only have so much money that we can invest in that. But that's just one program. And hopefully DFI is going to talk to us about other ways that the city can help get things on the right path. Yep. But that's kind of, what they went over with us, some of it. I didn't, they've got a bunch of slides, but it ended in some excellent discussions with council at both the meetings that they went to. I think, Marshall, you were at one of those meetings, weren't you, or were you?
Not yet. Well, I was at one over at the transportation area where they were, but this was actually a conversation about what was going to go on with New Bridge Street.
Okay.
And what's
But what their next discussions with council are going to be some examples of things that the city could possibly do. Like, for example, they're going to look at some pieces of property that the city owns, and talk about deals that could be put together, whereby the city would provide some resources. You would go out to the marketplace and you would find a developer, that would bring resources, and then they would compete for programs that the state offers, and that to help offset the cost of affordable housing. But use some examples there. Plus, I think they're going to look at an example of if you, instead of just building what we're seeing in some of the multifamily units that are being built, the apartment type units, whether, what it would look like if you tried to build smaller houses and more of them on smaller lots, which is happening in some places. There's a development down in Wilmington that's like that. You end up having more common space that all the residents share, as opposed to every lot having enough space for everybody does everything, on their lot, instead of having a smaller lot with a smaller building that meets the needs, but it's lower cost and that. But just different ideas like that. Like I said, it's going to take the whole community to be involved in moving us forward. We just need to agree on what are the things we need to accomplish. I mean, there is going to be the funding was approved for affordable housing on some of the land that the city owns at the commons. That been in play for about 3 years, and every year when the state offers their funding and has they evaluate submissions from different developers, they pick the ones that compete the best and fund them. Well, this particular proposal did not get funded the 2 years, but they did get funded this year. So there'll be some units there, and there'll be units like the ones that have built recently on Blue Creek School Road. They're the same that's the same developer and that. And, you know, but so that's good news there, but there's other things, like, for example, DFI talked about an area where a church took some of their property. They had a lot of property where the church was built, and they actually built some affordable housing, you know, on part of their property and things like that. There's some concepts like that. And so, you know, what we want to do is basically share the kind of information that we've learned from DFI with others in the community that could be partners to help work on this problem of affordable housing. That's our approach. Like I said, the city can only do so much, but what we can hopefully do is have some initiatives that will get people engaged in trying to basically help with this problem.
Is the base involved with this conversation?
Well, they were questions about it and that, but in other words, the DFI folks met with or communicated with people on the base staff to get information about, you know, the military, how they operate their housing and things like that. What's interesting, at least from my perspective, is now that they've got the private-public partnership, where the housing on the base is managed by a private contractor, and the rules for who goes in those buildings and that is different than when the military managed it. As the military managed it, you know, they basically had housing areas dedicated reserved for certain ranks and things like that. Well, because of the housing allowance that's available, a lot of your more senior people find it more beneficial to live off base because their housing allowance will allow them to invest in that. And what that does is, because the base contractor had, you know, he has a minimum occupancy guarantee, and if the people that choose to live on base still leave empty quarters, they're allowed to expand the eligibility on the base. But my point is going to be, the base is doing more to accommodate junior enlisted and families, which is really good because they're the ones most strapped in that. But the problem out off base is for those people like the service workers and even some of the military junior enlisted, you know, the housing still isn't within reach. So what some of these programs that DFI is talking to us about is how, with supplemental funding from different resources, you know, different sources like the state and federal government and the city, you can actually reduce the cost of getting those units built and operating them, and so therefore your rent can be lower, you know, but they still be quality units.
And I was also just wondering about the way that when you think about when housing is built, when people are deployed and it's figured out that they're going to be there for a while. I was talking with Bishop Smith about they build housing for people who are deployed. And we didn't get too deeply into it. The idea that I was getting from was that they build adequate to the situation they're in. If it's long-term, if you're going to be there not just a few weeks, but for a while, there are ways to build housing beyond the traditional way. You know, I was in Raleigh recently, and when I left, I had to come around, I forget the street I turned onto, but I was trying to get on Blunt Street to come back out and get on 40 East. And I've been going up there for a number of years, so I know what the housing looked like before this. Then a period of time went by when I didn't have to go. Then I recently did, I think it was last April, went down the street, and I was just like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, the traditional single-family dwelling that a lot of people who probably either own those places and lost them to taxes, low-income families live there. I know that to be a fact because I had known people. They're gone. Houses that they lived in, I noticed it because when I came down to get on Blood Street, on the right-hand side was where I saw all this. The left-hand side is still the way it was. These are all new housing that are very much like, there's a house on Kerr Street near to Kerr Street Rec Center that is small, goes upward. I don't know how many people live there, but it's chrome glass. It's a different kind of look.
That's the old Elks Hall.
Yes, and the way it looks, I guess I'm wondering about if there's going to be some building and somebody's going to have to build something. Are there ways to build houses that are intrinsically cheaper to construct than what we usually think about as traditional housing?
So
You know.
are you talking about transitional housing maybe?
No, well, not even transitional, but, prefab, I don't know if I'm using the right words, I probably am not. But houses that are already, the ones where he was telling me that when they go out, depending on where they're going to, this house comes, you put the foundation, the thing opens up.
I know
what
the
I'm talking about?
concept. Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
And then you roof it, and there you go. And sometimes the cost, I don't know what the cost is, I have no idea how it would compare, but, I'm just feeling like, sometimes in a community, you are so tied into it looking like what we traditionally think of housing as.
Brick and mortar.
And brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of young people who would invest in a place like, I remember my daughter was in a development, and nobody was interested in mowing lawns or taking care of grass. They didn't want to do any of that. All she wanted to do was live in her place upstairs. I say there's a place across the street from Charlotte Convention Center. You come downstairs and you get in a car, you go grocery shopping, you do all this. You don't want lawn, you don't want landscaping. It's very pretty, but it's just not. And I would never have known the people even lived there until I went in, because, and there's a parking garage there. It's just a whole different way of looking at housing. And when you talk about affordability, when you're talking about a generation coming along that is not interested in the things that we were interested in a house when we were growing up, grass of your own, a backyard of your own, stuff that you had to do, they're not interested in that. They're interested in going someplace as fast as they get on this phone and get off. And so when we think about where would we build a housing complex of, say, of new housing or affordable housing, however you want to put it, and you're thinking about what we usually picture in our heads, many of them are not interested. They want a house they can get in at a price they can afford. They do not want to have 4 or 5 people in there living with them, because that takes the being grown totally out of that equation. So, they don't want to have 4 grown people paying the rent in order to be able to make the rent that month. They want to be, and they're willing to make certain sacrifices in terms of aesthetics and all that, to be able to get into a home that they can live in and they can afford to live in, that might look somewhat different than what we as adults are, in my age group, are used to, if you know what I mean.
But one of the things, though, generally speaking, some of the people that we're looking at that, that really are low income, they're not in that kind of category. I mean, I think, so from a city standpoint, our regulations, even though, there's nobody done anything like that, it's possible for a developer to come in and there's a lot of discussion right now on what's called planned unit development. The planned unit development is where a developer can come in and basically say, I propose to do this on this property that I own and that. And if it makes sense and there's a market for it, council has the ability to approve it. But from a city standpoint, what the city's looking for is, one, areas that are built and basically are built properly, so they can withstand hurricanes. And that's one of the things, sometimes when you see what's being built other places, you don't know, whether that can, handle the kind of demand that we have in our area because of the weather and things like that. So sometimes some things that work in some neighborhoods don't work in other neighborhoods, you're right. But a lot of this, offering different variety is driven by the developers, and you ought to think about what kind of products do most of our developers do, when they develop undeveloped land, and that, it's targeted to a certain market. Yeah.
Okay. On what she said, the base has, traditional housing. When they go out for like 6 months, they are, I don't know if you ever been over behind base legal, where you go around the circle where the MP buildings is, and back over in that field, they go out, when they put their stuff out there, they go in the traditional housing, the single guys, okay? But the ones that are out here in Jacksonville, when General Leachy was here, he made them all move back to base. If you was under a staff sergeant, you had to move back in base housing because they fixed them up.
Yeah.
Now, if you ride around out in town, don't take my word for it, you see 5 or 6 cars at one house. There's more than one family living in that house.
Yes.
The reason we ask the guys, why do you move out in town? Because they don't have to go by the base orders. You cannot have no wild parties on base. Keep your friends' cars at your house. You cannot let no garbage. You have to abide by the base order. So a lot of them move out, because there are ones out, I can't call them. But anyhow, so I see them, and they don't cut the grass. I asked her, I said, look, my grandson has a lawnmower. You want your grass cut? She said, my lawnmower broke, but I can't cut the grass. But there's 5 people living in the house with them. It's only a 3-bedroom house. These are 3-bedroom houses out in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And if you ride by one, I see 5 or 6 cars sitting down the street.
Oh, yeah.
They're up in the yard, beside the house, on the back, on the grass. In Greenville, you can't park your car on the grass. My sister live out in Oak Grove. They have to give them a ticket to park on their own grass. I said, Jill, that's it. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. These are the ones that take up a lot of housing that could be for family housing, because it takes 4 or 5 of them to pay the rent.
Yeah.
And the landlord don't mind because he's getting his rent paid. He don't care whether they cut the grass. One, the backyards is so high, I can't even walk in it. When I go down the street and go to the little Walmart behind my house, you can look at their backyard and you can see down there, dog flannels as tall as you. And I'm saying to myself, this wasn't that kind of neighborhood when I moved in it, because Western Boulevard wasn't even out there. And when we moved in, it was a bunch of retirees that bought homes. Everybody kept up the yard and all this kind of stuff. But now, like they said, my house is going up, but I can't get what it is because I got 4 or 5 of them around me that got people living with them.
Yeah.
And it's just make it hard for a person to get out in their home. Like a retiree, he don't want a home anyway, so he has a traditional house. Like this one sergeant major that I said, he said, I don't need this big house, which he don't. But the thing about it is, it got to be some place for them to go.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, if we could have old buildings reformed, like I was looking at tiny houses. I watched those. But the mall out in Minnesota, remember the largest mall in the world? And it closed up. And now they got, and I said, it's so beautiful now because I watched it. They got the pickleball court in there, and they turned it into, finally had to turn it into something because it was just sitting there. They have pickleball court and inside the mall. They have spas, they have all these kind of things. And that mall is beautiful now because it sit there over what? You remember when they built it? The largest mall in the world?
Mall of America.
In the United States.
Well, I was going to say,
But they refined it.
a lot of what y'all are saying is actually going to be key to what we have coming up. So y'all are taking the presentation by storm. So do you have any additional questions for
Anyhow,
Mr.
that was just
Massey?
my take on it because I work Michigan.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
any
Massey.
additional questions?
I'd like to thank Mr. Massey for coming and bringing that presentation. I sat in on a second presentation that they did, that this group did, and saw the slides that you just showed us. And
Yeah.
I even took some notes and thought, okay, this is...
And they're coming back in November. So we'll be sending the email reminder out for when they'll come back, because when they come back in November, it'll be for them to bring their recommendations too. So you'll see how they've done additional surveys, input sessions, to be able to come to us with a game plan of how to move forward.
That's good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Massey.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's move on to neighborhood initiatives. Ms. Pam?
All right, so as we get started, we are preparing for our last homebuyer education, so it's perfect timing for Mr. Massey coming in with homebuyer education. This Saturday is our last class for 24. It is from 8 to 5 p.m. at the Jacksonville Station, 1300 North Marine Boulevard. The cost is $25 per person. Lunch is provided. But this is one of the requirements for those that are looking to purchase homes, regardless if it's in the city or if it's in the county. Because if they're receiving down payment assistance, homebuyer education is one of those requirements. And they can register by contacting us at 910-938-5286. And then in December, we have our last money management class. That is December 7th, again, a Saturday from 9 to 1. We've partnered with Marine Federal as well to give us an hour of advanced financial education. So for those that have not had money management, please come. Even if you've had money management, I always recommend for somebody to take money management, because they will say, oh, I'm good with my finances, I know what to do. And then when I say, just come to one class, when they leave that one class, they say, oh my gosh, I did not know that. So just come out. Again, the class date is December 7th. And to register again, call us at 910-938-5286. I'm excited. If you have not been down Cox Avenue, we have close to completion of 112 and 114 Cox Avenue. Yeah,
What's that one, Pam?
So this one is 112 Cox Avenue.
What side drive?
Sorry.
112?
Yeah, 112 Cox Avenue.
How many bedrooms?
Get to it.
It doesn't look like a former White House.
So yes, this is, we have 112 and 114 Cox Avenue. They are both 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes. The cost for them are $193,250. And we currently have a buyer for 114 Cox Avenue, so that leaves 112 on the market.
Good to go.
This is what it looks like on the inside of the home. There is no carpet throughout the house itself. Open floor plan on the first house and split bedrooms. So when you look at the front of the house, the windows off to your right is the living room, and then the windows to your left is the first bedroom. And so you have the bedrooms on one side of the house, but your bedrooms 2 and 3 are separated, and the master bedroom sits at the back of the house.
Is that a driveway? Or
Yes.
Okay.
So we do ribbon-style driveways instead of the full concrete pad.
Is that what you call it? Okay. I've seen that house. I've been over there. A friend of mine lives on Cox Avenue, so I've seen that.
Yeah, so they have all their appliances, except for the microwaves not installed. They have just, they got backsplash. So we had a great time designing and picking out colors and fixtures in the house. 112 is yellow. It looks yellow, but it's not yellow. It's a creamish color. This is the back of the home. So the back gable style here, that's where their master bedroom sits. And the patio is coming out from the kitchen.
And the closet in the master bedroom is huge.
Yes, it's a huge walk-in. Yeah, matter of fact, that jut out over here to the left of the home, that's the closet and the bathroom side for the master bedroom. So the closet is literally like its own bedroom.
All right.
So this is 114 Cox Avenue. That's currently under contract. And again, looking at the interior of the home.
That's nice.
And then that's the back of 114. So yeah, this back portion is the master bedroom, right off of the kitchen.
So I have to ask this again. So tell me about the ribbon driveway, you call it? So why instead of the traditional? Is that because of the cracking that happens, or?
Well, you
I know the
have
crack.
costs a little bit, but then also the permeation of the landscape itself. So that way with runoffs, it still has a way to,
A place to go? In the
basically.
ground. Okay. Okay.
And if you notice, majority of our homes that we've done have that ribbon style driveway.
I hadn't noticed it. That's why. I did not know.
Yeah, once you see it with the landscape, you won't even notice a difference. All right, so yes, we are currently waiting to have the electricity installed, hopefully this week. Hurricane Helene kind of threw electricity off track, having to respond to the west. So now that they've come back, they're working on the work orders that they've had for us. So as soon as we get it turnkey ready, we'll have open house, so that way we can do a true visual through the process. All right.
One question.
Yes,
Does
ma'am.
Jacksonville have any, what you call it, trailers or something that they was asking for goods to take up to Asheville?
The city specifically did not, but there was multiple agencies that was doing collections throughout.
I saw where the sheriff's department, they went up and, there's the Oslo County kids from school, they did 1,000 something package meals. They were sending them up, but they didn't ask for the community. Nobody, even put a note in my box or something like that, but I did take some to the credit union. They was asking for a state credit union. They had a box out for something, but I didn't see one from the city.
Okay. So with Jacksonville Youth Council,
Everybody was.
we have the first Wednesday, so our next meeting is November the 6th. At our October meeting, we actually had a representative from the Board of Elections come out and talk about voter registration, and those that were 16 and older were able to pre-register their registration. So we had a great opportunity there. We are actually in the process of doing our election season for our officers. So Youth Council is open to grades 8 through 12 in Oslo County and Camp Lejeune. We've also kicked off our Harmony Board, which Harmony is where they learn how to be philanthropists and give out the youth grants. And so we are prepared for our next meeting, which is November 21st. And that's again open to 9th through 12th graders. So we do that for our high school students. So be prepared for more reminders to go out with our youth council.
Not going from your Jacksonville Youth Council. Can the kids sign up online, or do you have applications in that little package that you had before?
Yep, so they have it at jacksonvillenc.gov website, JYC. They can contact us directly. My number is 910-938-6551. So yeah.
I just want to give her the paper because I can't tell them. She need to call you.
Well, I can give you some papers tonight. I can give you some
They
papers.
need to be in that.
Perfect.
They need to learn something.
Bring them. November
You know how to
6th,
do-
6
know how to-
o'clock, right here
The
at
neighbors
City
out in the
Hall.
community, because we don't know if we have a hurricane or not. Kids need to be out doing something.
All right.
Like my grandson did, we cut grass and all of that. That's what I'm saying. It's
Yes,
nothing
ma'am.
negative. But what I'm saying is I told them that was the best way for them to learn, be with other kids and see what they're doing, you know?
Yes,
Instead
ma'am.
of sitting playing games all day long
Absolutely.
while they're out of school during the holidays.
All right, save the date, November 20th, that is our last roundtable for our nonprofit season for '24. We have Mr. Colo Meadows, who is he is a certified John Maxwell coach, and he's going to talk to us about board member recruitment and retention. So all our sessions for our roundtables are held at Coastal Carolina Community College, and they're from 11 to 1. And registration is open now at the website, jacksonvillenc.gov/nonprofit. All right. Also save the date if you are a nonprofit that is planning to seek funding from the city in our upcoming grant season for fiscal year '26. So we are kicking off now for fiscal year '26. And the dates for our funding opportunity workshops is December 5th, which is a Wednesday at 2 p.m., or December 6th, Thursday at 10 a.m. You only have to attend one session to be able to receive the application. The deadline to register is December 3rd. And if you're unable to attend one of those two dates, then you may contact LaShawn Harston at 910-938-6546.
How long is the session?
Scheduled to, probably done within an hour or so, depending on questions.
Right.
2 hours.
That's much better than the previous
Previous,
2-day,
Yeah.
6 hours each.
well, now that's different.
Oh, this is,
Yeah, so that's different. So the 2 days, 6 hours is our conference. This is funding opportunity workshop to learn how to apply for grant funding. So if your nonprofit is seeking grant funding assistance, then this is a required workshop.
this isn't the one that you require 50% of all the boards.
That's the conference or some form of training.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. So that is still in place. That is, and we've actually expanded it this year.
Okay.
So saving the date for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, because we identified for the conference that you still need the basics of board development because there's a lot of new board members that come on, but then also identifying the advance that's needed because you have some board members that have been board members for quite a bit. So we give them a basics day, advanced day, and then we've gotten great reviews on our panels, so we're keeping the panels.
Do we have the calendar dates yet, or?
I want to say it's February 5th through the 7th. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday now in February. So we'll be advertising, those details come our December meeting as we prepare to open up registration. All right. I'll go forth into the community development update. All right, so Census Tract 17 and 26, we've talked about this before. 26 you're familiar with New River. 17 has been identified from our most recent census, which covers the Savison Heights, Overbrook area, by Roosevelt, Queens Road, Sherwood, behind Dunkin' Donuts, across from Courts Plus.
Okay.
So we built a home over there, 208 Queens Road. But in looking at the current census results, that neighborhood has been identified as our upcoming low moderate income area that we can focus on. And so focusing within Census Tract 17 and 26, we're really pushing out our marketing and reaching out to homeowners and residents for rehabs and acquisition opportunities. We're looking at exterior rehabs, hoping to get inside for potential interior opportunities. And houses that have been vacant, and we don't want them to become dilapidated to the point of demolition. We're seeking those that we can potentially purchase and rehab and turn around and make them affordable housing opportunities. Just as we've done with those houses on Cox Avenue, even though they're new construction. If we can find homes that are good structures, not needing a lot of work done on the inside, and outside rather, but something that we can truly invest in and put the opportunity to make a home affordable that may not have been affordable. So we are putting that plea out there now to the community in Census Tract 17 and 26, or city limits of Jacksonville, if we need to look at scattered sites as well. And that's tapping into our housing initiative update, because as soon as we finish on Cox Avenue, we'll be moving to downtown where we have lots on Ann Street. That's our next phase. Yeah, so we'll be putting out for bid for builders to reach out and send us some floor plans that we can build on. After there, we're moving into Georgetown, where we have some in Erastus Lane that we'll be building as well. And again, just looking at some updated sites that we're trying to make housing available. Our fiscal year 25-26 annual action plan update. We are kicking off. So tomorrow night is our first community input meeting that we will be at Sandy Run Missionary Baptist Church at 6 p.m. That is our first official community input meeting for fiscal year 26. The surveys will be available for those to start filling out. And we've expanded our surveys to include citywide altogether. So not just looking at our community development block grant fund spending, but also what as a whole does the city need to prepare for? What are some things that needs to take place with recreation, within parks, media, communications? Any department that is currently seeking input, it is on that questionnaire. And so that goes back to a lot of things that you're seeing in various communities and how can we implement it here? That's where you'll be able to give us that feedback. And if you need the hard copy surveys, let us know. We'll print some out for you so you can give out. But they'll be also able to do it electronically. We'll have the link on the website. Whenever we do our presentations, we'll have a QR code that they can scan and fill it out real time if they don't want to write the whole time. So all those different ways are ways that we'll be tapping into getting communication. We've averaged about 200 responses in the past, so we want to continue to grow and expand that, because that's going to give us the focus on where we need to put the funds at and where we need to start targeting to make Jacksonville whatever initiative is needed to take. All right, so tomorrow night, 6 p.m., Sandy Run, Missionary Baptist Church.
I'll send it out to be, I can't come, I'm on the Board of Elections, we're counting ballots tomorrow, so.
Okay.
Ballots for them.
All right,
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow night. All right.
I gotta do Christmas shopping.
Madam Chair, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you for the community development updates and neighborhood
How many
initiatives.
houses do you have for demolition right now? Do you have any?
Right now, we've completed 174. We have some commercial demolitions that's in the pipeline. Actually, one is being torn down now on the old Stevenson appliances on Marine Boulevard. So if you drive on Marine Boulevard right before you get to Georgetown by McDonald's, you'll see demolition taking place on the right-hand side heading towards Georgetown. And then we have residential structures that we have in the pipeline that as we go through that process, we'll be able to update you.
The chicken place at Country Club in Elm Branch, I saw they're emptying, looks like the
Country Club in Belfort. Yeah, Church's Chicken. Yeah, so that's one of the ones in the pipeline for our commercials. We're close to getting ready to demolish it as they're preparing and doing their end. So soon that will be.
Pumping what looked to be the
Last of
gas tanks were being emptied or something, so.
Yeah, so I always say you can see your city at work every time, but when you start seeing buildings disappear, man, your city working hard.
It's much necessary.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Thank you for all of those updates, Ms. Pam. Let's go to One City, Our City, My City moments.
So here we have our, if everybody came out to National Night Out, we did have a tent set up there, and we were handing out information about our rehabilitation program, all the services that we offer with neighborhood improvement services, as well as JYC. And so Bishop Smith there is talking with the mayor. Okay. All right, and Miss Tracy. I don't know. I didn't mean to catch Miss Desmond face. But yeah, so it was quite an event. We had a great turnout. A lot of people came out and visited our table. I don't think you had any bracelets left over, Pam.
No. Greatly appreciative.
Or suckers.
All right.
Any more One City, Our City, My City moments? Anyone? I have one.
Okay.
And that is our I guess considered a nonprofit if it is a food pantry, but Bountiful Blessings, which is the food pantry that started out of my church, St. Julia, has now moved to First Baptist Church in Georgetown. And they will be opening up, I believe Reverend Hubbard said, on Friday. It is Friday, November? On Friday. So, and I guess they'll be making their first delivery or serving the neighborhood in the circle of cars on Friday. They have changed their location. So it's just to let everyone know.
Expansion.
Yeah, it is expansion. It is expansion.
And what time does that distribution go? What time does it go?
They usually, the folk that go regularly, they kind of know what time to line up, so it's different times, but they're usually putting food in cars at least by 8:30.
Okay.
9 o'clock. It might be a little earlier, depending on the weather, and all those things kind of play a factor
Okay.
in how much they have. So
Yes, ma'am.
they're
Congratulations.
growing.
All right.
Anyone else? Any future agenda topics that anyone can think of that you might want to? Any topics, ideas, policies, programs, any other activities that advance the mission of NIS Advisory Committee, of the NIS Advisory Committee? Help us foster livable neighborhoods in all the residential areas of the city of Jacksonville.
I would have a quick, it hasn't happened yet. Our Bayshore Estates Network, our men group, we're doing Halloween over at Wilson Bay Park on Thursday. It must be Thursday coming up, isn't it? Yes, from 5:30 until 8. We did it last year, worked out very well. Because you don't have a lot, we used to have a lot of kids, and then people gotten older and so on. But it's safer than trying to go around, because the way Bayshore is made and curves around, there are no stop signs around. So you have to really be careful driving around when people are pushing babies and, strollers and things like that. So we're just going to go over to the park under that pavilion area and along the walkway too. And each one of us, we're just going to set up our tables and give away candy that way, so people can pull up there and park, get little ones out who won't be in the street. Now, I would imagine it'll probably be more people this time because we did it sort of impromptu last time. And other people who saw it said, oh, that's a good idea. It's good for somebody like me where I'm just myself. And I used to be on the sidewalk in front of the house and it was just, kids walking up to the door and all of this. So this is a much better way to do it. So anybody who's watching who is in the area will be out there from 5:30 to 8 on Thursday.
Okay.
And like I said, it's a Halloween giveaway, so it's a much safer way to do it, I think, in the way,
I'll be there.
And we'll be having a fall festival also, I'm not calling it Halloween, because it's going to be at the church on Thursday. So we'll have hot dogs and candy and all kinds of stuff.
And what church
What
is that?
time?
That's Evening View Missionary Baptist Church, 5 to 7.
Okay, go by there and then I'll go by there and get the candy. Anyone else? Thank you. Any questions or comments? We're at the end of our agenda. Our next meeting is December 16th. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is.
And it's a change on your calendar because the fourth Monday falls within Christmas. So, yeah, double check your calendar because it's moved up a week.
Okay. The 16th.
Oh,
16th.
okay. It would normally have been the 23rd. Phones are too smart. And we have, since we're done, I think, can we have a motion?
I was going to say, you have your key dates on the slides as well.
I'm sorry.
Noticing that we're coming into that fourth quarter with the holidays, so you have a lot more closings. The holiday parade is moved to the 23rd of November. So if you would like to participate, youth council is walking. So if you'd like to walk the parade with us, let us know. You ain't gotta look like that, Jerry.
Is that the holiday parade?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm out of town, sorry.
All right. And then next slide, do we have anything? Yep. So all that we've talked about already. And then with our closings. All right, and November is longer. I think we got some 5 Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, something in there that's 5 of. So Thanksgiving is later than normal, so make sure you pay attention to your dates and your shopping.
5 Saturdays, 5 Fridays.
All right.
All right,
Right, 1, 2, 3, but yeah, 5, right.
all right. So it's in your hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pam. I think we've gone through the whole agenda, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say.
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good evening.